In this video, we will briefly look into working with projects in Projetex 5D. Here, in the clients list, we already have the client ACME Corp. Now let's assume we need to complete a project for this client. We open the client by double-clicking its name, then proceed to the Projects tab. The list of projects is clear now. Let's press New to create one. In the new project window, we enter the project's name and other data, like the product description. We will work with an imaginary product, VerbaSync. We have previously added the contact for the client, Jackson Alamain, and they will be responsible for the project from the client's side. From our previous communication with Jackson, we know some details about the product and the nature of the jobs we are supposed to do, so we fill the fields. Press Select to choose the project manager. On the client side, these options are taken from the contacts list for the client. We may also choose a client's product line for the project, but for now, we only have the main line. Now we want to set the deadline for our project. This data we know from the client. Here I have the mail from Jackson with files for translation and the desired deadline. We fill the deadline field correspondingly. We click OK to see the project in the list of projects. To start working on the project, we right-click its name and choose Open Project. Each project in Projetex consists of client jobs. We divide the work into smaller tasks, considering the project logic, our agency's capabilities, and the client's recommendations. From the client, we know we need to translate the interface strings into German and Spanish, create documentation in English, German, and Spanish, and do voiceovers in these three languages. We will only create some of these jobs in this tutorial. But first of all, we must take care of the client's files. There are several ways to get the files into Projetex. Here we cover only one. We go to the Files tab for the project. Open the incoming folder. Then download the files from the client's email, saving them into the Downloads folder. Then we cut the files into the clipboard. Back in Projetex, we click Explore to open the projects folder in the File Explorer and paste the files. In the next step, we want to make them available on the server, so we upload them with a comment. The files become available to our team. Let's proceed to creating client jobs. We move to the Client Jobs tab and click New. The system automatically suggests the job name, which is convenient for one-job projects. We, however, will change the name to better reflect the nature of the job. We choose the group of services and the service. Translation is the service we provide on a daily basis, so we already have all the required services in our database. Now to set the job volume, we can use the AnyCount engine. We click the AnyCount button, point it to the corresponding file, and immediately get the word count. To get prices from the price list, just click the Prices button. We can also set the deadline for the job, but we will leave it as is for now. There are some other fields to describe the job better. And also here we can see the project files. Click OK to create the job. and we can proceed to another one. We set the self-explanatory name and choose the needed service. This time, we are translating the same file into Spanish. We use any count again to get the volume, though we could just set it manually, as we already know the word count. When we try to get the price, we find out that there is no English to Spanish rates in our price list, so we enter the price manually and click this special button to save the entered price in the price list for future use. Note, all these prices are made up for this tutorial. Of course, you should put your actual agency rates in your price lists. Click OK to save the job. Let's create another one, this time for voiceover. Assume that voiceover is not a regular kind of job for our agency, and we do not plan to provide this service in the future, so it is a one-time job. That's why there is no such service on our menu. Let's choose Other and Additional Work. We use any count again. As for voiceover, the client provided another file. It's 702 words long. We will set the prices manually and will not save them. We want this job completed earlier to have plenty of time to check its quality, or for whatever other reason. To the next job. All the same, we set the name and the service as before. By the way, here in the list, we see some details about our jobs, like names, prices, volume, deadlines, statuses, etc. We create one more job. We need to create documentation. This service is new for our agency, but we plan to provide it in the future. There is no such service in the list, so we will add it. Go to Settings, Corporate Settings, Group of Services. Click New and enter the name of the group here. Here we can also set the required expert level to work on such jobs, but not this time. Now click Services, then New. Choose our newly created group and enter the name. We can also set the language for the service. Back to our job. Now we can choose the service for our job. We could also set the number of words, like before. But we do not know in advance how many words will there be in the documentation, so it is more reasonable to set the volume in hours. Let's allow 10 hours for this job. Set 15 euros per hour in the price field, and save this price for future jobs. Let's adjust the deadline as well. We should create more jobs for Spanish voiceover, documentation in other languages, and more, but the procedure is quite similar, and in this tutorial we are going to skip these tasks. Now we need to distribute these jobs between our experts. We have the corporate team and the freelance team. Some jobs will be passed to our corporate experts, and some to freelancers. Let's start with the corporate team. Click the Corporate Jobs tab, and New to create a job. We are prompted immediately to choose a client job. In Projetex, each expert job must have a parent client job. One client job may serve as a parent for many expert jobs, both corporate and freelance. But each expert job can only have one client job as a parent. So we pick a job from the list of available client jobs. And, as we can see, most fields are already filled for us. Of course, we need to set an expert. Each expert, like clients, has their own price list. For this particular expert, the price was never set for the service, so we are setting it manually. Let's create one more job. Similarly, we set the price and choose an expert. And the other jobs we are going to create for our freelancers on the Freelance Jobs tab. The procedure is very similar. However, when we try to choose an expert, we see that there is nobody in our project team. Not to worry, we can set one from the general roster. We set the price. It should be less than the price for the same job for the client, as our agency margin would be the difference between these two. It is recommended to set more strict deadlines for freelancers, as you usually don't have much control over the freelance team. And it is better to have some time for force majeure. You may also want to form a special team for your project, to simplify management. There is a special tab for that. You can also find a freelancer with specific skills needed for a job. By clicking Search, you open the freelance search window, where we can set some search parameters. We need an expert who can translate to Spanish. And there is only one person with this skill in our database. We can remember the name and add them to the team later. We also could use the Add to Team button to do it faster. Let's create the job for Spanish voiceover. We set the price. Set the deadline. But we forgot to set an expert, so the job is listed as vacant. We open it and easily assign it to Jose. Let's consider this part done. Naturally, we need to add more jobs for our experts, but we do not want to overcomplicate the tutorial. Next, we must issue the files to our experts. Also, we want to create documents like job assignments for corporate experts and payment orders for freelancers. There are special buttons for these common tasks in Projetex for each job. You can also open the special folder allocated for this record. This folder will be visible to the corresponding corporate expert, and they will have access to the files in the folder. So, this is the place where you can put the files for your expert. Let's do it. Let's also create some folder structure. And do not forget to upload the file to the server. We create POs for freelance jobs. And we also create JA for the other expert job. In real life, you would have to create the printed documents for each JA and PO and send them to your experts, either by mail or by other means, whichever your company workflow assumes. We will skip this step for now. All these records are easily accessible on the corresponding tab. You may notice that POs for our experts are of different color and have different due dates. This happens because of different payment terms set in their profiles. Projetex color indication is an excellent way to quickly check the status of a record, but we will discuss this topic in another tutorial. Note: we've seen how to send a file to a corporate expert. For freelancers, you should employ another way of communication, like Projetex Cloud Link, email, live chat, corporate cloud server, an FTP server, or another one. We do not cover this topic in this tutorial and assume that all experts have received all the needed files. Now, we only have to wait, letting our experts to complete the jobs. The magic of clip making enables us to skip to that moment at once. Off screen, I marked the expert jobs as completed and created some made-up files with the results in experts folders, as if they were received from the expert. So we need to copy these files to our project folder and upload them to the server. Now I mark the corresponding client job as completed. Of course, in real life, I would send the file to a proofreader, creating another expert job for this purpose, and, in worst-case scenario, had to return the job to the expert in case of poor quality. There also could have been some delays on the expert's side. But in our scenario, we assume that everything went perfectly, and I mark all the project's jobs as completed as well. Here, in our project's files, I've collected all the results in the outgoing folder. I send them to our server. And now I am just sending them to our client. I'll do it by email. With all client jobs completed, we may now mark the project completed. We do it in the project's profile in the projects section. The only thing left for us is to get paid for our work, so we need to issue an invoice for our client. We open the client, proceed to the Invoices tab, and create an invoice. Here, we need to add some jobs to the invoice. We can add all of the jobs, only completed jobs, or some jobs in particular. Let's add all of them, as in our case, they all belong to our project. We can also adjust some parameters and apply a discount, a markup, or some taxes. Let's add VAT to see the total adjusted accordingly. Now we choose a document template and click the Create and Open button. We see our document ready. The template is the default one, so it does not look perfect. It can be adjusted, We will talk about templates in another video. For now, we will stick to this version. We send the invoice to the client's project manager and expect them to pay. For some reason, they pay not the exact amount, but a little bit more. We receive the payment off screen, and it is 500 euros. So we register it in our system on the Payments tab for the client. We want to indicate that our invoice has been paid. So in our new payment, we are linking our invoice. You can see the totals and the payment amount do not match, and there will be some money left. On the Client's Invoices tab, we can see that our invoice is now fully paid. It does not appear as an outstanding one. The remainder of the money is now registered in the client's account. So in the future, they can spend this amount on our services. Let's make sure that our project is completed indeed. And this concludes this tutorial.